I wanted to weigh in on a debate that took place on the floor a couple hours ago, actually when I was presiding in the chair between the majority leader and the minority leader on what we're going to be doing here in the next couple days on the Senate floor. So right now, we're having a health care debate. We're finally having a health care debate. Many members, both sides of the aisle. Mr. President, I saw your speech a few hours ago talking about the importance of health care for our country, the importance of, from our perspective, repealing, replacing, repairing a health care system that's not working. Certainly not working the way in which it was promised to Americans. I won't repeat all the promises made by the former president and many senators, but we know those haven't come to pass. As a matter of fact, a number of us, I certainly believe that my state, the state of Alaska, the Affordable Care Act, so-called Affordable Care Act, has done a lot more damage than good. Just a few statistics in Alaska. Premiums in the individual market went up over 200% since the enactment of the Affordable Care Act. 200%. Alaskans in that market, individual Alaskans, for one health insurance plan, for one individual, pay almost $1,100 a month in premiums for health care. That's not affordable. So we're debating it. It's important. It's an open amendment process. We're going to be probably debating all night, and that's what we should be doing. The world's greatest deliberative body, debating a very important topic. But health care is not the only issue that the Senate is focused on, Mr. President. As a matter of fact, a number of us on the Armed Services Committee over the last several weeks have been working on and debating and bringing amendments to the National Defense Authorization Act, the yearly act that authorizes funding and training and equipment and policy for our military and the young men and women who serve in our military. It's one of the most important things we do here in the Senate, by far. So we've been doing that as well as health care, which is also extremely important. 3 weeks ago, after a lot of debate in committee, after a lot of hard work, debate between Republicans and Democrats, the draft NDAA of 2017, the National Defense Authorization Act, focused on our national security, focused on our troops, passed out of the Armed Services Committee 27-0. Very bipartisan bill. Very important bill. And a very important bill for the country to move on after the health care debate. So we had, the majority leader, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, had a very simple request. The minority leader this morning, when I was in the chair presiding, and the request was, once we are done, for now, because it's going to continue with the health care debate. We won't be done for a long time, but once we complete the business that we are undertaking for the next several hours on the health care debate, that we move forward to debate and pass the NDAA of 2017. Pretty simple requests, very reasonable requests. This bill, like health care, is extremely important for the nation, for our troops, for national security, and on a personal note, it's particularly important for one of our members, the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator McCain of Arizona. We all know him. Americans know him. He's been a mentor to many of us, a leader, certainly an American hero who has sacrificed immeasurably for our country. And in another of a series of heroic acts by the senator from Arizona, he returned to the Senate this week after announcing that he's fighting brain cancer. Now, Senator McCain is a fighter. He's going to win this fight, but he's going back to Arizona very soon for treatment. So many of us, but especially the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, who did more than anyone to move that bill forward in such a bipartisan way, want to take up the NDAA after the health care debate. Pretty simple, pretty reasonable, and really good for the country. Finish the health care debate for now with this open amendment process that we're beginning already here on the floor. Then turn to the NDAA after and debate that. Good for our troops, good for our national security, and it would show a lot of respect to the chairman of the committee who's done more for his country and more to advance this important bill than anyone else. So, Mr. President, I hope my colleagues, all of my colleagues, this shouldn't be a partisan issue, can agree to this. But unfortunately, we're hearing rumors that the other side is saying unless we vote against any health care bill to continue to move forward, unless we vote for any health care bill against it to move forward, then they are not going to take up the NDAA. Now, does that make any sense? We're going to debate health care. That's really important. But now we're hearing the other side saying if they don't get their way in the debate, then forget about it. We're not going to take up the bill that authorizes the training and equipping and the policies of the United States military. Does that make any sense? The answer to everybody here in the Senate chamber, anyone watching on TV, it makes no sense. These are not connected. These are not connected issues. Is playing politics with our troops, tying it to another bill, any way to advance the national security and the welfare of the men and women serving in our military? The answer is no. You know, unfortunately, Mr. President, we've seen this movie before. Some might remember last summer, right around this time, we were working hard on appropriations bills. The Appropriations Committee voted different appropriations bills out of committee, as they're supposed to do, and they voted the Defense Appropriations Bill out of committee with an overwhelming bipartisan vote. So what did we do? We brought it to the floor to debate it and try to pass it. Funding for the troops. That bill was filibustered 6 times by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. 6 times. Go home and explain that vote. Why you filibustered spending for our troops, when they're in combat, by the way, 6 different times. I came down to this floor numerous times asking somebody, anybody on the other side to come down to the floor and explain why you're filibustering spending for our troops on a bill that passed out of the Appropriations Committee with overwhelming bipartisan support. So, Mr. President, I'm going to ask the same question. The NDAA came out of the Armed Services Committee 27-0. If the minority leader is going to filibuster that, he should come down and explain it. If he's really saying, we'll only take up the NDAA if we get our way on the health care debate that we're having right now, he should come down and explain that. Because it makes no sense. It makes no sense, particularly because we all know that right now we are seeing very, very significant national security threats to our country. Pick up the paper. Iran, Russia, China, and in particular, North Korea. There was a report in the paper just the other day, yesterday, front page of the Washington Post saying, it's now estimated that North Korea is going to have an intercontinental ballistic nuclear missile, likely by next year, that can range not only my great state of Alaska, but the rest of the continental United States. These are serious national security threats. And one of the provisions in the NDAA that had bipartisan support was to significantly enhance our country's missile defense. Is that important, given the North Korean threats that are at our doorstep? You think the American people care about that? It is important. It's important, as are the hundreds of other bipartisan provisions in the NDAA that will enhance our national security, authorize funding for our military forces, increase the numbers in our military and strength, and again, very bipartisan. Mr. President, you and I have the honor of serving on the Armed Services Committee. It's a great committee. It's very bipartisan. We get a lot of work done, led again by a great U.S. Senator, John McCain. It's an honor to serve there. I believe right now the Senate is trying to pass a unanimous consent agreement that as soon as we're done with health care, that we will then take up this critically important bill. As the chairman wants, as he's requested, and as our military needs. And we should do that. This is not a hard decision by Democrats or Republicans. So I hope we can do that. I want to encourage all my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, whatever your plans are in the next couple days, we'll get through this health care debate, very important for the country, and then let's get through the NDAA debate and pass that bill as well. But what we shouldn't be doing is playing politics with our military, or somehow tying moving forward on an important piece of legislation for them to another issue that has nothing whatsoever to do with them. We shouldn't be doing that. And if we are, shame on those who are. So let's move forward. Let's have this health care debate. And when it's completed, let's immediately move to the NDAA and pass that. It's a bipartisan bill. It's going to help our nation, help our troops, enhance our national security in dangerous times. And there is no reason that anyone should block moving forward on that important piece of legislation as well. Mr. President, I yield the floor.